It is the year 1462. Constantinople has fallen to invading Turks. Prince Dracula has to leave his new bride Elisabetta to fight against the Turks. A fierce and intense battle takes place, and Dracula's counterattack proves to be effective. He leaves numerous soldiers from the Turk army alive, impaled on long spears scattered across the battlefield. The Turks, seeking vengeance, send a message to Dracula's castle falsely announcing that the warlord has been killed in battle. Elisabetta finds her life useless without her husband and flings herself into the river below. Because she committed suicide, the bishop proclaims her soul damned. Dracula returns with eyes filled with tears. He is furious that God let his wife die while he was defending God's church, so Dracula renounces God and the church. He unsheathes his sword and plunges it into the large cross positioned on the dais of his chapel, causing it to bleed. As the crimson liquid flows from the cross, Dracula eagerly drinks the blood. He proclaims that he will be reborn after his death, with all the powers of darkness at his command. 4 centuries later, in March 1897, England, law clerk Jonathan Harker is travelling to Transylvania to close the sale of 10 London properties being purchased by Count Dracula. He read his fiancée Mina Murray's letter on the train. Upon his return, Jonathan and Mina Murray intend to be married. In Jonathan's absence, Mina goes to stay with her rich friend, Lucy Westenra, who has just recently received 3 marriage proposals from Texan Quincy Morris, Dr. Jack Seward, and Lord Arthur Holmwood Carey Elwes, and she has decided to marry Arthur. On his way through the Borgo Pass, he meets the villagers who are kind and warn him of the evils dwelling in that castle and to not travel at night, but he doesn't listen. Later, Jonathan goes on a journey to Dracula's castle located in Transylvania to manage Dracula's property investments in London. While on ride, he passed blue flames and wolves. The Dracula is the Count himself. He finds that Dracula never eats, sleeps all day, lives alone in a large castle in which most of the doors are locked, and crawls down the castle walls like a reptile. Jonathan feels increasingly uncomfortable as he notices that the Count has taken a keen interest in a photograph of Mina. The Count believes that Mina is the reincarnation of his long-lost love, Elizabeth. Jonathan hears strange sounds in the castle at night and goes to see what's going on. He breaks into the room, which is locked, and suddenly he falls asleep. While sleeping, he has strange dreams about 3 women who try to seduce him. Dracula arrives to send them away from him. He gives them a crying baby for them to feed on. He also tells them that as soon as he's done with Harker, the women are free to do as they please with him. The women agree and take off with the poor child, leaving a horrified Harker alone with the Count. The Count has pressured Jonathan into writing letters indicating that he intends to remain at the castle for an additional month, further complicating Jonathan's situation. He writes strange details of the castle in a letter to Mina. She becomes worried after reading it. Meanwhile, the Count is preparing for his trip to England by having his mindless servants fill large crates with dirt from the grounds around the castle. Mina shares his worries with Lucy when suddenly a terrible storm begins out of nowhere. At the same time, a vessel named the Demeter is navigating the Atlantic Ocean, heading towards England. Its mission is to transport various cargo, including boxes filled with goods from Eastern Europe. Suddenly, they suffer from strange and horrible experiences, such as the disappearance and murder of many sailors. A small beast like a dog escapes from the ship. July 1897. Jonathan has been missing for over 3 months, and Mina is sick with worry, while Lucy is involved with planning for her wedding. However, Lucy has begun her old habit of sleepwalking. One night, Mina becomes worried seeing Lucy sleepwalking. She follows her through the labyrinth, calling out her name when she discovers Lucy being raped by the same beast-like dog that escaped the ship. The dog then sinks its teeth into Lucy's neck and drains her blood but disappears after seeing Mina. Mina takes Lucy back to the bed. Some days later, Lucy's condition becomes worse. Dr. Jack Seward, who is taking care of a patient named R.M. Renfield, who has a peculiar obsession with eating flies, has also started treating Lucy. Lucy displays various symptoms of anemia. However, Dr. Seward is unable to determine any underlying reason for her condition. Consequently, he has decided to call for a metaphysician, philosopher and specialist in rare blood disorders, his old mentor, Professor Abraham Van Helsing. As soon as he arrives, Van Helsing starts a blood transfusion for Lucy and puts garlic close to her bedside. When Lucy's admirers inquire about the potential causes of her severe anemia, Van Helsing proposes that a supernatural entity might have been preying on her. The others find it too fantastical to believe. Meanwhile, Mina is out in downtown London when a tall and strangely handsome Eastern European man in a grey suit and top hat is drawn to her. He asks her about the cinema's location. and she shows him. He introduced himself as Prince Vlad Shekeli, and Mina was strangely drawn to him, as though she knew him. He quickly manages to seduce her while they are at the theatre, but her trance is abruptly broken when a large wolf suddenly appears and frightens the audience. Mina is surprised moments later when she sees that Vlad is suddenly friendly with the wolf. Back in Transylvania, Jonathan Harker is in a very bad situation where weird sisters continue to drain him of his blood. One night he gathers all his courage and runs away. He was able to seek refuge at a convent known as the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. They reach out to Mina through a letter, informing her that he is safe and receiving care, but they also mention that he has been afflicted with a severe brain fever. They bid her to come to Romania and be married to Jonathan. She realizes that she can no longer see her prince again. She goes to meet Lucy, who is in bad condition, and gives her wedding ring to her as a gift. Mina says goodbye to Lucy, writes a note to Dracula, and sets sail for Romania. Meanwhile, Dracula is heartbroken at losing Mina to Jonathan. He takes Lucy as his bride instead, attacking her in her bed as the wolf and causing an explosion of blood that kills her. After Lucy's funeral, Helsing informs the group that Lucy is not dead, but has become a vampire herself. He explains to Arthur, Jack, and Quincy that to give Lucy's soul peace, they must cut off her head and take out her heart. They are horrified and think that Van Helsing is just a sick old coot. When they reach her grave in the middle of the night, they frightfully discover that her coffin is empty. Suddenly they hear someone singing and see Lucy accompanied by a crying child. Van Helsing can force Lucy to release the child and force her back into her coffin with a crucifix. Due to his engagement with and love of Lucy, Holmwood is selected to drive a large stake through Lucy's heart, while Van Helsing beheads her with a single blow. When the deed is done, they band together to seek out the Count and destroy him. Mina and Jonathan, after the wedding, have returned to London, where they find out that Lucy has died. One evening, they share a meal with Van Helsing, who is currently caring for Jonathan. During this time, they learn about a group that is searching for vampires, and Jonathan suddenly remembers that he is familiar with Count Dracula. He informs them about Carfax Abbey, the place where Dracula resides, and where the unearthed boxes are stored. After securing Mina at Dr. Seward's sanitarium, the five of them, including Van Helsing, Jonathan, Quincy, Jack, and Arthur, pay a visit to the Abbey to sterilize Dracula's earth-filled crates. Meanwhile, Dracula is paying a visit to Mina. When she discovers that her beloved Dracula is the vampire responsible for Lucy's death, she feels deeply distressed. However, her feelings are not strong enough to deter her desire to be with him and to embrace his way of life. Dracula drinks from Mina, then opens a vein in his chest and bids her drink. He abruptly halts her and pleads with her not to proceed, expressing his deep love for her and his desire to prevent her from facing eternal damnation. Suddenly they are caught by Harker, Helsing, and the other men. They burst into the room. They attempt to destroy Dracula, but he changes into hundreds of rats and scurries away. When Mina shared her story with the men, she talked about the dreadful noise that Renfield had been making. They decided to go downstairs to look into it, and to their shock, they found that Renfield had been killed by the Count for attempting to defend her from him. Dracula knows that he cannot stay in England any longer, and books a passage back to Transylvania via Varna. Mina and the men follow close behind. As Dracula is in contact with Mina through their minds, Van Helsing knows Dracula's plans, but Dracula also knows their plan. Instead of going to Varna, Dracula diverts the ship 200 miles north and lands at Galatz. This causes a change in plans such that Van Helsing and Mina take a ride directly from Varna to the Borgo Pass. Meanwhile, Jonathan, Quincy, Arthur and Jack travel by train to Galatz, where they obtain horses and set off towards the Borgo Pass, aiming to catch up with the Count. They are unsuccessful. Dracula's gypsies picked up his box at Galatz and are now speeding down the Borgo Pass road, making the race closer than ever. Mina and Van Helsing are nearing the castle, but choose to pause for the night. As they hear eerie sounds from the nearby area, Van Helsing creates a protective circle around Mina. To safeguard her, he presses a Blessed Communion wafer to her forehead, leaving a burn mark as a form of protection. They stay inside the circle through the night, while Dracula's three brides tempt Mina to join them, killing the horses from their carriage. The following morning, while Mina rests within the protective circle, Van Helsing goes to the castle. There he beheads the vampires and tosses their severed heads into the gorge, shouting the Count's Latin name, Dracul. As the sun begins to set, the gypsy wagon carrying Dracula in his crate makes its way toward the castle. Meanwhile, Jonathan, Arthur, Quincy and Jack are riding swiftly to catch up to it. Mina and Van Helsing wait inside the castle courtyard. Mina calls up a blue flame to protect Dracula. As the gypsy wagon enters the courtyard, a gypsy stabs Quincy in the back. Jonathan tries to open Dracula's box, But as the sun sets, Dracula suddenly emerges, his strength renewed. Jonathan slashes Dracula's neck, while Quincy drives a sword through Dracula's heart, and Mina screams. As Arthur races forward to finish Dracula, Harker stops him, saying their work has finished. As Quincy dies, Mina sits with Dracula on the chapel floor inside the castle. She kisses him, and he begs her to give him peace. Out of love, she pushes the sword the rest of the way through Dracula's heart. The burn mark on Mina's forehead vanishes, and the wound on the altar cross heals itself. As Dracula succumbs, his face regains its youthful appearance. To Gran. For his final release, Mina beheads him.